You're listening to the GC Collaborative Podcast, a resource for the worship arts team at Grace Church.
Welcome to the GC Collaborative Podcast. Hey, my name is Ben. I am the worship director, communications guy over at Grace Church in Overland Park, Kansas. And sitting across from me is the wonderful, handsome, super talented.
I feel like we got to switch this intro at some point because you always do such a
do
great...
I do this? What? I do a great what?
Lifting me up. I always feel so great. Like,
okay. The miserable, the ugly, muy feo.
I'm not saying you should change the... I'm not saying you should change it. I'm just saying, you always introduce me so well. Like, I've been down for 5 days because it's been cloudy here.
Yeah, that's true.
And no sun. And this is the first time I felt joy in my heart.
Oh, wow.
February.
This just got real dark. By the way, depending on when the listener puts this in their ears, happy wedding.
Oh,
Congratulations on your marriage, which happens April 9th.
Yep, April 9th.
Now known as Luke Benak. Right? Luke Benak. Right. Because you've decided you're progressive and you're adopting this whole new stuff in 2021.
Oh my God.
You're taking the name.
We're going to try it. We're going to try it for a year or two. See what
Seriously, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Very excited for you.
We're excited.
Both you and Bailey are a blessing to us, and we're excited for you, my friend.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be Easter weekend and then wedding that next Friday, so it's going to be a fun week. That's for sure. Wow. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, you're going to be hitting the ground running next week, and then you're off for a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Are you revealing where you're going? You guys are going on your...
Oh, never.
Never, okay.
I never reveal anything about anything.
You never know. Someone could call.
Mainly because I don't know. I don't even know where we're going. I haven't booked it yet.
Oh my.
I figured I'd try to get some deals last minute.
All right. Sounds like you're going to Branson.
Right.
And no offense to those who actually went to Branson on their honeymoon.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you're going to do a last minute honeymoon, that would probably be...
Maybe just downtown Kansas City.
Well,
check it out.
Yeah, that could work too, actually.
But yeah.
Cool.
So it's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun.
Well, we're very excited for you.
Thank you,
speaking of Easter, we are as we're recording this, I don't even know what the date is, but 25th. It's March 25th, Thursday, March 25th. And you're doing rehearsal tonight for the online service. And then next Tuesday night, the 31st.
2 days before you hear this,
30th. I think it's the 30th, we're going to be recording that. And we're doing something different with the online stream, which I'm excited about trying. We're filling up the actual seats in the auditorium with people. So that way we're going to give the visual for the people that actually attend our online campus. We're hoping to try some different stuff and see how this works if we have the visual of other people worshiping, so that the people worshiping online can maybe have that feeling that that they're alongside they're alongside others, their church family worshiping. So I'm excited about that because I've gotten a way better response than I thought.
We have. I
don't know if you remember, when I mentioned it, I was like, well, let's just at least get the first 2 rows filled. I think it's going to be more than that.
Really? That'll be awesome.
So,
and if all else fails, we'll just put cardboard cutouts of ourselves.
Well,
out there,
follow the MLB, NBA,
NFL,
and all that.
We'll just have cardboard cutouts.
Yeah.
We put some famous people out there too.
That would be.
Is that Kanye? Whoa! Look at that guy.
Kanye's visiting Grace.
Yeah, love it.
So talk to us about the episode today. What are people going to be listening to today, my friend?
Today it was a great one. We got to sit down with our North OP campus pastor and dear friend Chris Fetters, and we just talked to him. We kind of went all over the place and talked about worship, a weekend service, what he would love to see in those things. What we even talked about, what we considered a success in that, like what would be a success, which is pretty cool. And then also just leadership, finding diamonds in the rough, and how do you pull out the stuff that is in people that they don't even know is inside of them. And so it was actually a really great conversation. Super excited for everybody to hear it. So hope you guys enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's GC Collaborative Podcast. We have got a great guest with us today. one of, if not my best friend. I guess he is, because he's the best man in my wedding coming up. So he is the best friend. Chris Fetters, also known by many others as our North OP campus pastor here at Grace Church. Welcome to the show, sir. We are so glad to have you. Thanks for being here. How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's good. It's fun to be here. Get to talk about things that we've talked about for 12 years now.
I know. 12 years of knowing each other.
Yep.
Hopefully that's been a good effect on both of us more than a negative. I'd say it's good on me. So.
I think it's been awesome. I have lots of stories, but I will save them for now.
Let's save that.
So we'll save them
place.
for the wedding reception as I toast you.
Wrong place, wrong time. Let's not talk about any of that.
And candidly, there's no one, though, I'd rather talk about worship with other than Jesus, maybe, than you.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's fun.
I think of the many conversations that we've had that have shaped my life, and I know you have played such an instrumental part of my life, because when we met, I had gotten out of the church world, thought I was just done with all of it, and we met in Colorado 12 years ago now.
Yep.
And you spoke a lot of life into me, just as a person, as a worship leader. And I always tell people, you're the first person to actually believe in me and tell me I was like good at it, rather than my parents.
That's awesome.
And
the feeling is mutual. I would say this before we jump into the content, and I tell everyone this, I've told you this as well, that one, anyone who knows you for more than 10 minutes knows that you bring a lot of fun to the room. But two, also, you don't fit into a box, which I think is a good thing. And I think...
Good or bad?
No, that's a good thing. And three, you've challenged me to think outside the box. And you're a creative genius. And also helped me understand how worship can expose its thing, exposed in different things, different arenas and different venues. And so, one, it's extremely fun to talk about this. Two, I hope that this conversation, and just the way you carry your life, will genuinely transform kind of the worship culture that's even out there now, from the standpoint of, let's not just have to be one way, but really, how can we worship God with a tuba player, or with a violinist, or with an artist, or with a trombone player through the electric guitar, or just a set that has drums and drums only, And so I just appreciate how you have always pushed the envelope of what is expected to actually what can be. So this will be fun.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Well, let's dive into that real fast, because I think that's a really great quality that you have, and I saw it in myself with you and me, and then I've seen it with many others since that day. Is you have a great ability of seeing people that might have little dust on them, little rust on them, but you kind of see that diamond in the rough in people, and I think that's such a crazy, amazing quality, because in the worship world, you can kind of be like, oh, I wish we had this amazing singer or this amazing guitar player. And sometimes you have to find that diamond in the rough. Yeah. And so I don't even know if you can explain it. I'm going to try to have you do it. It might be so intuitive that you don't even know. But what's your thought? How do you do that? How do you think about things in that way? Or is something just click in your spirit? Or how do you go about just seeing people and seeing the potential that they have and what God has in them?
Well, no, it's a good question. I think the Lord told me. Doesn't she have a song that says "Diamond in the Rough" or something like that? So
I think that's Rihanna.
Whatever. Okay.
Worship song.
I would
Rihanna,
never listen to that. Whatever. No, I'm joking. Yeah. I genuinely believe that most people, there's a lot of creative people out there and a lot of talented people that no one ever taps into. Because one, they have to fit into a perceived mold. Two, they have to sound or look a certain way. Or three, they've been told they can't do it, or they're not good enough, or they're not Christ-like enough. And so I've always just said, Lord, I want to see people be used by you. I mean, I really try to live my life that way, because also, I've heard this in several different resources I've read, and one book that's actually called Exponential, but that says a third of the room are artists. Okay, so if you're in a room on a Sunday morning, or you're in a room on a Wednesday night with students, or you're in a room with a bunch of college students, that they say about at least a third are artists. That's 33%. Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, for those who know me, or those who don't know me, know that I'm a sports junkie, You know, I'm not the most musically, I can't sing good, but I love it. And I love the expression of worship using instruments and creativity. And so I say that to really stress the importance of looking past just things that you're into. Like, hey, I'm just into sports, I'm into this. To actually say, okay, get to know people.
Yeah.
And I think relationally, when you get to know people, you know what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
And I say, get to know people for who they are, not what they do. I mean, the first time I met you, Luke, you had a mullet wig singing Sweet Home Alabama, okay?
Hey, well, you know.
Yes, that was the first time. But, you know, we went to a barbecue restaurant. I just got to know you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that transforms a relationship. Mm-hmm. It also creates equity.
Yeah.
So how I did it was, one, I feel the Lord's grace. Two, I think the way I continue to do it is just care about people.
Yeah.
Far more for who they are, not what they do.
Yeah.
And so I wish leaders would do that. But if you go after an artist just for what they do, one, an artist is going to see through that really fast.
Absolutely.
And two, they're going to get burnt out.
Yeah.
And three, you're going to maybe try to put an artist in somewhere they're not gifted, or what you want to put them in this box that's not the box that they're good at.
Yeah.
And so I think you can only know that if you relationally connect with people and care for them and who they are.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of the things I've learned from you and in life is, and it's hard because I don't know if it's as a human or as a man or something, one of those things. It's hard sometimes because you're so driven by, okay, what can we do for each other? What connections can I make? You know, especially like, you know, and work side of things.
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, you know, type of thing.
Yeah. And so I think it takes a lot to say, okay, who are you? What do you want to do? And how can I just love you even if you're not good at that? Because I think that's, as an artistic person, you always think people just like you because of what you do. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to get over that. And so I think when you have a leader that's above you or leading you that you know is just like, and I always tell people this too, is that when I worked underneath you and you're my boss, I always thought you thought I was like the greatest worship leader ever. And I really thought that. Like,
you are. I still think that. No. Yeah.
And but it gave me so much confidence to try things, to think outside of the box, to fail and then not get, you know, lashes for that, but to say, I mean, but you're honest. You were like, yeah, that wasn't the greatest thing ever, but okay, we tried, you know, move on. And I think, you know, I was a huge perfectionist, still am to some level, but it was just like, it was so freeing because it was like, oh, I can make a mistake and I'm not just going to get punished or destroyed for this. It's just, and I think as an artistic personality, that's so freeing because in your own mind, you're so like, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to, you know, screw this up. And so to have somebody just say, okay, yeah, that was really bad, but life moves on.
Well, absolutely. I mean, all of us, I mean, think about this, Luke. I mean, all of us succeed at things and we fail at things we're good at.
Oh,
or we fail. We fail at things we're good at. And so I think the kingdom is so much bigger than what we try to make it be. So here, let me expound on that for a moment. The kingdom of God is us as, you know, believers. We're in this kingdom together, okay? And we're to glorify the King in this kingdom, which is the Lord. Well, an artist is one of the professions that is very performance-based.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so how does it sound? What does it look like? How did it affect my senses? And if you, as a creative, if all I did was judge you on your performances, and that would be a very lonely place to be. Like, did you do good this week or did you not do good this week?
Yeah.
Were you good? I mean, really, that's like works-based, you know, relationship with God.
Yeah.
As opposed to, okay, this is who Luke is. He loves the Lord. He wants to worship the King. And he's going to try different creative ways to do that. I think we should celebrate that, not try to stifle that.
Yeah.
And I just get this picture of heaven someday. I mean, I just want to read this real quick because it just hit me. Revelation chapter 4. Okay, you get this picture, okay, of the author gives us his throne room of heaven for a moment, okay? He goes, immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne set in heaven, one sat on the throne, and he who sat there was like a jasper, like a stone in appearance. And there was a rainbow around the throne, in appearance like an emerald. I mean, just think of the creativity and the beauty and all the different aspects of this. Around the throne were 24 thrones. And on the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white robes, and they had crowns of gold on their heads. And from the throne proceeded lightnings, thunderings, and voices. 7 lamps of fire were burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. Before the throne, there was a sea of glass like crystal. I mean, just think of the beauty.
Oh, yeah.
And just the imagery here in the midst of the throne. And around the throne were the 4 living creatures, full of eyes in front and back. The first living creature is like a lion, the second like a calf, and the third living creature a face like a man, and the fourth living creature like a flying eagle. All these are beautiful, strong, amazing creatures. The 4 living creatures, each having 6 wings, were full of eyes around and within. And they did not rest day or night, saying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. And if that's not a creative God, then we're missing it. Yeah. And I think we as church leaders have to promote and encourage our worship leaders to have this same desire and understand the importance of we serve a creative God. So let's be creative in what we do.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to fail. You're going to succeed. And that's okay. Yeah. So I would just say this to anyone out there. Even when you go consume a worship service, don't look, is this good enough?
Yeah.
But more of, man, how is this glorifying God?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, I think that's it, though. There's so many different styles. There's so many different vocal styles, and it's like if you try to get everybody to just sound a certain way or do a certain thing, I agree with what you said back a few minutes ago, is you're going to frustrate people. You're going to put them into something that they're not. And if you don't try to just look at who God's created them to be in any realm, really, not even just worship and artistic stuff, but in any realm, you're just going to frustrate people, and then they're going to burn out. And then this is what's crazy to me, is then they're actually not going to do as good as they could do if you just let them like fly the way they are. Yeah. So then they're going to meet your expectation of not being that good.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, oh, I guess that artist just wasn't that good, or they weren't as good of a worship leader as I thought. Yeah. Or sometimes from the outside looking in, it's like, oh man, like I wonder if we missed out on an opportunity with that person because we wanted them to be something they weren't. And if we just let them be who they were, they would have, flown past their expectations.
Absolutely.
In any realm as well, not just the artistic realm.
But I do think, though, it's important for us to do. And my prayer is that the local church will make that a focus. Because, and I'll tell you, you're good at this. So this isn't to pat you on the back, which, though, you're really, really good at, is no matter what someone is gifted at musically or creatively, that you will find a spot for them.
Yeah.
And here's a cool thing that I learned from you as well, and I take this on to do even with the North Overland Park community. Like, we have creative nights at Homer's Coffee Shop. I think so often churches want their creatives to fit into just their Sunday morning environment. That is not the only place where a church can experiment creativity.
Yeah.
We need to create environments, and the local church needs to create environments just like we do for outgoing leaders that are more vocal, or people who want to get in the Word of God. We create Bible studies for them, which is very important. Or we create Easter egg hunts for kids, or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, why don't we create environments, or create more environments where creatives can use their gifts?
Yeah.
And so really Homer's nights are based out of conversations with you, where it's a night where artists of all, like photographers and painters,
they were amazing,
and singers and
spoken word,
poetry, all those type of fun things. We create a night at a coffee shop to allow people to use their gifts.
Yeah.
And to me, that engages people, creates that there is a place for me. And it doesn't always have to be on Sunday mornings. So pastors or leaders or even church goers who are afraid to experiment creatively will start it in different environments than just a Sunday morning and allow that culture to take, foster that culture and environment, and then watch God use it as it bleeds into your weekend services or grace students and so forth.
Absolutely. Overflows into the weekend for sure. And I think it's just important to have those places too where people can experiment, I always think about this with stand-up comedians, they do their specials on Netflix now and everything, but they test those jokes out for months and on different crowds and stuff like that. And so I think even in that realm too of just creativity and people is having those places outside of maybe the weekend service and sometimes on the weekend service, because you never know. I remember watching what's his name, Saturday Night Live producer Lorne Michaels. He was talking about how
it's a creative mind.
Well, yeah, when they do their shows, he would say the hardest thing about what we do is you never know if something's going to be funny until the night of, because he said time after time we've done skits where all week we're rolling, we think this is going to be a hit, and then they do it the night of and it just flops, and then vice versa, where we think it's going to flop, we just kind of fill a space with it because we need something. And then it goes viral on YouTube. And he's like, the hardest thing about it is you never know when something will hit. And I think that's so true with anything. It's like you just don't know. Like all you can do is create. But if you have spaces where you can experiment and take chances, and sometimes a little bit more experiment, a little bit more chance that maybe you don't want to do on a weekend, then I think it does, to your point, overflow and gives that community into the weekend as well, which then, I always look at the weekend service as the top of the iceberg. It's like there's so much that goes on underneath with community and experimentation, hopefully with artistic stuff. And then that's just the overflow or the top of the iceberg, if you will, that, the majority of people see. And so that's pretty cool.
And I would say, and I really... as I come from a church leader or church goer, and I hear a lot of conversations. Well, I don't like that song, or I don't like her voice, or I don't like his voice, or I don't like this feel, or I don't like this moving light, or I don't like this haze, or there's not enough haze, or the drums aren't loud enough. Everyone has opinion, and opinions aren't bad, okay, but they are opinions. But I do think, man, what if the church really unleashed the creatives to expose their creativity in a way that glorifies God and pushes people to glorify God?
Yeah.
And I just think, unfortunately, that most of the creative people in our world are not serving the local church.
Yeah.
And this isn't a bash church podcast, but I'm just going to talk about this for a moment, Luke. I would say, I know, I love the local church. I've committed my life to it. But I would say a lot of reasons why is because there's so many opinions, and when things are tried and it's not received well, then it's like, oh, we can't try anything creative again.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And we can't, that doesn't work for here. Well, I would really encourage all of us, whether you're creative, you're not a creative, whether you're a church leader or church attender, to really invest and to verbally encourage people who are in the creative realm and worship leaders and musicians and artists, et cetera, to use their gifts. Like, do that. I think that leaders of the church specifically need to be the biggest cheerleaders of creativity within the local context, specifically the church. I really, really do, because my desire would be to see so many people using their gifts that point to the glory of God.
Yeah.
To point to his beauty, just like the picture in Revelation 4. And so it can be done.
Oh, absolutely.
And the reality is creatives can be a little emotional.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
They're a little more feelers,
but
right?
I think to your point, it's the when something is tried and failed, it is, and this is where I think for me in my early 20s and working with you was so imperative. And I don't think I, realized how fortunate I was because a lot of times I have seen where creative people try something and it's not received well or whatever it might be. and they just get down, and then they give up. And they're like, well, I guess it's not meant to be, or I'm not as good as I thought, or whatever it might be. Where I think if they had somebody to say, hey, it's okay. Like, you tried, get back up, and try again and see what happens. Like, you're not defined by that. Like, it doesn't mean you're a bad artist or whatever. It just means it wasn't received well. And the crazy thing about art to me is that some of the things that weren't received well their first time are the things that changed culture 10 years later. You know, that happened time and time again with music and artists, where it's like they weren't received in their time because it was new. People didn't understand it. It wasn't in their paradigm. And then years later, it hit and changed culture, which that's always the crazy thing too, is you never know in that time and place, you know, if it really is successful or not, because, you know, even the piano and the drum set were not accepted when they were first introduced to the church. And think if we would have, but think if we wouldn't have, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
think if we wouldn't have allowed that, we'd still all be singing a cappella, which I mean, I'm not saying that's better or worse, but I'm just saying those things were not accepted in their infant stage in the churches. And
because people don't like what's different.
Well, it's hard. I mean, none of us do. We have our paradigms. We have our ways we see things. And then if something new comes in, I think all of us automatically don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, because we don't understand it. We can't put it into something we can relate to. Yeah. And so it just takes time. And so that's the hard thing, is you naturally don't like new things. No matter who we think we are, you know, like I rarely see or meet people that when something is totally outside their paradigm is like, oh, I love that. You know, it's like we generally are like, yeah.
It's the same thing like restaurants. We don't, you know, like, should we try this new restaurant? Should we try this new vacation spot? Should we try this new song?
Yeah.
Should we try this? You know, a lot of times people have cars. They'll have Fords. If they started with a Ford, they'll always own a Ford or Honda, whatever it is. You know, that's how we're conditioned, I think.
But I think that's where, like you were saying earlier, like the artists in the church, I think in that realm, if we allow it, they can sometimes push us to uncomfortable places. And sometimes it's too far. Yeah. Be honest, I've been a part of those things as well.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think there is a level of like, hey, let's push a little. Yeah. It's not going to be comfortable. And then let's come back. And then maybe a couple of years later, we'll get back to that place. You know?
Yeah. And let me speak to that for a moment, because I think we do need to take risks that make people uncomfortable, by all means. I mean, the sermon I'm preaching this weekend for online for all of our campuses, and this weekend at North Overland Park, I give an image of the crucifixion and the scourging that took place and how brutal. And I even said this, I'm not creating this for shock value, but to create a little context. Now, this is what I want to say to creatives, though, and this is where I've appreciated conversations with you. I think we even have this. Like, don't push the envelope just to get a reaction. I think sometimes creatives can like just push the envelope just to say, ooh, look how cool, or this wow factor it is for you. But what is the intentional, like, what's the intentionality behind it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where I think how creatives and non-creatives, or creatives and people that aren't as creative like as me, we can coexist and say, okay, what is the purpose in it?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people just like doing things for effect, just to make a statement, which at the end of the day, we're to glorify God.
Yeah.
So in the local church, like, we're in the day to glorify God. And I think if, like, say, the creatives and non-creatives, I hate saying non-creatives, but you get what I'm saying here, work together with intentionality, God can be glorified.
Yeah.
And people can have great understanding and be uncomfortable on both sides and be okay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know we've had many conversations where you ask that question. And I think as an artist, like, you appreciate that, like, working in the church, because, you know, there's a whole slew of things coming together, but one of the pressures you do feel naturally, whether it's externally or internally, is to come up with something new, be creative, try different things, do the, you know, next cool thing, good, bad, or indifferent. Like, you can just feel that pressure sometimes. So sometimes you do need that outside voice to say, like, why do you feel like you need to do this? And I know at times that's jolted me. And I'd be like, shut up. But later I'm thankful, because it's like, you know, that was coming from an unhealthy place. And I think that's the thing too, is just the trust and the relational trust between artists and pastors and stuff like that, of being able to say, like, hey, I care about you, and that's why I'm asking this question. I'm not just asking this question just because I care about the product you're producing or the gift you're producing. I care about you as a person, and like, where is this coming from? Because the crazy thing is, as an artist, if it's coming from an unhealthy place, like, the Lord can use anything, obviously, but that's in detriment to who you are as an artist in a way, and you're going to keep going down that road. And so you need those people to kind of bring you back to say, like, hey, let's make sure this is coming from a good place and not just, I want to be cool. I want people to talk about this later. You know, like those are...
What glory does it bring me?
Yeah, because those are real, like, I mean, I know what most people don't like to talk about, but that's just a real issue that all of us have as humans, even working in the church, is, you know, there's times where you're like, it comes from a place of, I want people to remember this and be like, oh my gosh, like, so-and-so created this. This was so cool.
And, I mean, as a preacher, you can deal with that tension as well. Like, what can I say? What is the cool alliteration, or what is the thing that's just going to stick with them, or this visual illustration, just a wow factor?
Yeah.
But do I want people walking away with the wow factor? Or do I want people to walk away from experiencing God Almighty?
Yeah.
And ultimately, everything we do leads to that. But I feel there's a side maybe thing we're talking about in this, that I know this wasn't the direction of the podcast, but it seems like I want to say this.
It's a creative podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
No
Go
direction.
I think the importance of relational equity.
Yeah. Oh,
because I'm just hearing our conversation, right?
Yeah.
So if you care about people for who they are, I mentioned this earlier, but the reason we can talk about these things is because we have the relational equity.
Yeah. Oh,
when
absolutely.
I'm not getting in, you're like, Chris, seriously, I'm just like, dude, let us try this. You're missing it. You're being dense, or Chris, you're too narrow-minded.
Never said you're big dense. I don't even know the definition of that word. No,
but I'm paraphrasing. But it's because we have relational equity.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think that I'll just speak to pastors for a moment and other church leaders. Got the hiccups. Take your time to invest relationally. Because when you do, that's where, one, you're on the same page, relationally care for each other. Two, if I do say something to you or vice versa, we're not all up in arms. Like, this guy doesn't care about me, just cares what I do.
Yeah.
And three, I think I'm not defensive when we talk. And I don't feel you're defensive. So I think creativity flows from that.
Yeah.
Oh, how about this idea? Luke, that's a great idea. How about this idea, Chris, with your sermon? It's like the heart to get better, not to be a no guy.
Yeah.
It's the heart to say, how can we make this the most powerful, Christ-honoring moment? And when we're connecting relationally, that's where creativity flows, and we can make each other better. Some of my best ideas are because you just mentioned something.
Yeah.
Like I just did a sermon on Relationship 101. A couple of things I said was just because of a little comment you said, because of relational equity.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I'm guessing there's either songs or worship sets that have been really powerful that said, hey, Luke, let's try something like this.
Yeah.
It's because of that God is honored more, and there's more creative juices flowing.
Yeah. I think it's when you know somebody's for you, like those things don't come across so like you're doing a bad job, or it's like, I just know. And I think maybe that's it. That's the line I'm looking for as I'm talking, is it's when I know people are for me, like my success, me following Jesus, me, doing these things. Then when they give advice, even negative advice, I'm not like, I might get a little, just because nobody likes like negative, feedback in any way.
No one initially likes.
Yeah, but you take it better, and it's like that. To me, in the phrase that keeps popping in mind is love covers a multitude of sins, and the fact of like, I think when you have that relational equity in those relationships, I mean, I've been in places where it's like you're walking on eggshells because you're like, I don't know how to say this. I don't want to say it wrong. Like, are they going to take it the wrong way? And then you say it, and you overthought it so much that then you don't even get your point across. Yep. So then you're more mad because they're not doing what you want them to do. Yep. But they had no idea because you said it so roundaboutly. And so I've learned probably in the last couple of years more than anything of when you have that relational equity, I don't have to dance around. I don't have to give you the compliment sandwich, Like, Because then, like, I know so many artistic people who like get that. It's like, okay, here's the compliment, now here's the negative, and so that even becomes trite in its own way. And so it's just the it's the equity to come up and say, hey, like this, and I don't have to. I love you. I care for you. I'm for you. And I think that just covers so much of those things that sometimes get systematized.
Hands down.
Where it's like, hey, I just know he cares. And
hands down. I think it's
huge.
That's important for all of us.
Yeah.
And you can't shortcut relational equity, and you can't short creativity.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they go hand in hand, especially in the local church, trying to work together in that.
Oh, yeah.
And so it just takes time.
Yeah.
And if you want healthy relationships, you have to take the time to do it.
Yeah.
They don't just happen. You got to be intentional in that. And if you want to be creative in the church, you have to be intentional.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's to your point. Like, it makes my heart sad that a lot of people, even who work for churches, can move around so quickly. Work there for a year or two, then they go to the next one for a year or two, the next one. And one thing, thus far, by the grace of God, I think I've gotten to experience in my life is being places a long period of time and being with people for long periods of time, because I think to your point, it does take so much time to build those relationships. And so if you're, just moving so quickly, I don't know. This is my experience. I'll put that out there. I might come back on in 2 years and be like, that was horrible advice.
No,
but I think it just takes time and living life with people and knowing, because then when somebody does tick you off that you don't have a great relationship with, it's so easy to be like, I'm out,
Well, I think it's with the people you lead to.
Yeah.
I think time is helpful. Just Lindsay and I think of a relationship as healthy. So my wife and I going on 15 years. I think my wife is more beautiful and more fun to be around, and I look forward to talking to her more than I did when we were dating 17 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with people in serving the local church. Have we had ups and downs? Have Lindsay and I had tension? Absolutely. But the fact that we seek the Lord together, we care for one another, and we're working, it becomes even more rich. I say the same thing with leaders in the local church. Even people attend the same church. It's like a family. Are you going to do things that aggravate? Are you going to do things that are not fun or that are going to affect people and offend people? Absolutely. But if you're working towards the one thing, and that is to glorify God, okay, to make Him known, to share the gospel, it's awesome. And I think, like, even for you, you've been at Grace now 6.5, almost 7 years, right?
7 years,
right?
September.
7 years. Okay. I mean, it's just going to get better.
Yeah.
It's going to, and could you be gone in 2 years? I hope not. Sure. Any of us could be.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think, like, Christmas Eve here at Grace was that I knew you could have pulled something off in that in your mind 6 years ago, creatively. All right. Creatively, excuse me. But it took you time. It took you equity. It took you relationship. It took you building a team and empowering people. And 6 years later, 5.5 years later, when you're hired, we were equipped to minister to people at Christmas time in a pandemic that we would have never been able to before. You and a great team, obviously, of Ben and Jonathan and Andrew and Chris Anderson. But I'm not here to give you all the credit by any means, but I know how your mind works.
Yeah.
And but that took time. That took a season. And so I would say that being in a place relationally, work with people, enjoying people's gifts, understand what people are good at, it just makes things better.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think the longer you're on a team with people, there's an unhealthy aspect that can develop. But I think the healthy aspect is you learn each other's rhythms, you learn how each other work, you learn, the equity side of it. And so I think even with Ben being here, Jonathan being here, Andrew, Kurt, Anderson, all these guys being here for so long, and then adding on new people like Kaylee and Cody and all those guys.
Talented.
It's like there was this perfect mix of things. And
but that's a good thing that you and Ben, Andrew Schumann, you get to know Kurt, you guys love people.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't pay our musicians who play on the weekends.
Yeah.
I mean, they're volunteers. Mm-hmm. People give hours of their time. It's because they love you, and you guys give people a place to use their gifts.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful to see. And I will, as we talk about this, I want to talk to the average churchgoer as well. I mean, my heart is that our church would walk in when they come into all of our campuses or online, not with a consumer mentality, but a mentality of like, man, I'm going to give God my all.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to worship him. Doesn't matter what the sound, doesn't matter if I like that singer or like this guitarist. I'm here to worship God, not to consume, but to glorify.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's amazing how that attitude can change the room, too. Because even as a musician or a singer or worship leader, whatever, if your attitude is to please the crowd or to play well for the crowd, that takes such an effect on how you play, how you lead, how you sing. Like, it affects your spirit so deeply. And I think that comes into the room and the atmosphere of the room. And then if you have people coming in just wanting, it better be my song, it better be, this or that, or it better be what I like, it wasn't that good, kind of that mentality. All that comes into the life of a room, I think, whether we realize it or not. But imagine if you had a room where the guitar player is giving his all just because he wants to glorify God and worship the Lord with all he has, and the drummer's doing that, and the singers and the vocalists and the worship leader are all doing that, and then the room is there and they're all just like, I don't even care what song's being played, I just want to worship the Lord today. And it's like that, like, to be in rooms like that is just insane,
those are powerful. I mean, powerful moments.
Yeah.
Just because in my prayers, our church, and I feel our church has grown even every year that I've been here as far as the love for worship. And it was growing in the love of worship before I was here. And,
absolutely.
Since it started. But I would say, man, how awesome would it be if we, like every one of our campuses and online, even people's living rooms, came in, say, I am going to worship God with all I am today. Yeah. It's like the John 4:23. For time has come, and now is coming. The true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For these are the kind of worshipers the Father seek.
Yeah.
And man, how cool would that be? And I've been at Grace, and there's been some weekends at all our camps like, oh my gosh, this worship is bad. Someone's singing out of tune. The mix is bad. Yeah. It's too loud. It's too soft. I mean, all of us. I mean, I've been in multiple environments. And Luke, I love you. I've been in environments where, like, you've led sets. I'm like, what is going on here? Now,
I've probably been thinking that same thing.
And I know I've preached sermons and people are like, what the heck is he talking about? Okay, so
absolutely.
I'm not without fault here. But here's the deal.
Absolutely.
I've learned in those moments, like, focus on the words lyrically, what God's doing. Focus on, man, this is a great picture of God. And that doesn't give our bands or an excuse for mediocrity. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But that if our heart is, as a consumer on a Sunday morning, the one who's coming into the room that's going to hear the band is not what can you do for me, but who he is, we would see, I think, a revelation, a revolution, a movement, an awakening of worshipers that would, I think, just transcend culture and environments. I mean, it's a place where heaven and earth can become one.
Yeah,
and that's my prayer, that we can do that. And God is already doing stuff in our midst. I just look forward to ways He can do more. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think people always ask sometimes, which you've kind of answered this question, so I'll put it out there, but just like, oh, well, what would you like to walk away? Like, what would make you, quote unquote, feel like that was a great service? Like, what would make you feel that way? And I think that's it, is just those times where, there's just a room. For me, that's it, I'll say, is just a room full of people that are just there to just be in the presence of the Lord and to worship Him. And it's not necessarily everybody's raising their hands and singing at the top of their lungs. It's not that at all. It's just literally there's a place of freedom where people can meet with the Lord as they are, whatever that looks like. He takes them, draws them somewhere, wherever He wants them to go. And people leave transformed because they, have been spent time with the Lord in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I think we miss that, though. That's the thing. This is the thing that, like, oh my gosh, like, if you come in with that consumer mentality, like, you're gonna like God can do whatever he wants to do,
Yeah.
but you're going to miss that. And to me, it's
something's
like, oh my
always not
gosh.
going to be good enough for you.
Oh yeah. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I relate it sometimes in my brain to like you go to the football game, like a Chiefs game, to use a sports reference for you.
There we go. Thank you.
I've been growing up.
Thank you.
To use a sports reference. You go to a Chiefs game and you're watching the Water Boy and you've never been to a Chiefs game before and you're like, oh, everybody says this is great. And then you just watch the Water Boy the whole game and you're like, what's so great about this? And it's like, that's what in my mind is like when you're so focused on the consumer mentality, it's like you're focusing on the band or the speaker or whatever. And it's like, what's so great about this? Well, nothing. It's the boringest thing ever.
Especially
you're missing the
compared
football
to-
game.
yes.
You know, you're missing God. You're missing the
Compared
Lord.
to the glory of God, it's nothing.
Yeah, and it's like,
could
oh my
not
gosh, like how many people? It
agree
breaks
more.
my heart. It breaks my heart for me when I get in that mode sometimes, where it's like, oh my gosh, you're missing out on so much that God has and wants to do because you're so distracted by the Water Boy.
I mean, if one of our values at Grace in our Antioch values is Christ present.
Yeah,
And if we have the best, like, if it were me, if I'm just sitting there in the chairs in a room full of 300, 400, 500, 600 people, 800, whatever it is, 1,000, 4,000 on Easter, blah, blah, blah. And the band is incredible. But I'm sitting in a room of people, and maybe even the band is worshiping. Awesome. But I'm sitting in a room of people that are just like not into the reason to be there. It's not nearly as impactful.
oh yeah, I know.
If I'm sitting in a room where people just look like they're at a like a funeral, or they are at a golf match where they can't only clap so often,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, no, we're at this moment that we can celebrate the resurrected King with other believers, and there's so much life that comes from it. So that I would just encourage all of us when we come in on a weekend corporately to sing like you sing in the shower, like do it. Who cares who's listening? Get on your knees, be excited, and know the reason. And if we do that, we will see a community be transformed in ways we couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
And so that would
That's
be
good.
my just encouragement.
That's
So,
really good.
Yep.
All right, I got one last question for
Yep.
you, and I'll let you go. Maybe. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. What is, and I asked this to a lot of people. I actually got this from Ben, Master Ben, is what is the song that is really just speaking to you right now? Or it could be the last couple months,
Okay.
whatever it might be. Just a song where you're like, man, when I hear that, Lord just moves through it or a recent experience. with
Yeah.
one.
Oh, that's a good question.
Or it could be 3.
I would say like 3 songs.
Whatever
I'll,
works.
I'll just give you one song right now. The first song that came to my mind. I mean, there's a lot of great
Yeah.
songs, but probably I'm going to see a victory.
Yeah.
Because I've been in Joshua and in Mark now, leading up through my study through the time of Lent and leading up to the resurrection and of celebration of Easter. But just reading the book of Joshua again, how God goes before us, and how He wins the battles, and like for us not to live defeated because we haven't lost,
Yeah.
but to live in victory because He has won.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's just a good song. I mean, there's so many good songs out there, but I just have liked that song just recently because there's victory that comes in Christ and Christ alone.
Yeah.
And so, yep, I'm just waiting for you to write it. It's been a minute since I've heard a new song from just you. So
Yeah, you know,
War
ebbs and
Cry, I mean,
flows,
that's like
ebbs and
circa
flows,
2011.
Ebbs and flows.
All right.
Come on now.
Like,
Just kidding.
let's go. It's time
my
to have those
gosh.
creative juices flowing. But I love you, man, and I'm thankful for this. And I just
Heck
pray
yeah.
that people, that we'll just be a church of worshipers, a community
Yeah.
of worshipers. And I love you. I look forward to what creative thing you're going to do next.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on the
Yep.
show podcast. We're so glad to have you. It's fun because
I've arrived
it was
in life.
supposed to. Yeah,
I've arrived in life.
supposed to be a different podcast today, and then it got thwarted by some life circumstances. And so, I honestly like all things, God does it for a reason. So I think hopefully somebody needed to hear this conversation. I
Absolutely.
did parts of it for sure, and so some of it was a little heresy, but it's okay. That's,
Revelation is in the Bible. Luke.
Yeah, just kidding.
It's the last book of the Bible.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. Seriously. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for joining.
See ya.
Well, that was fantastic, and just want to thank Chris for Pastor Chris for being a part of the podcast today.
A little organ on there.
Yeah. Yeah, let me just say, I've always loved ministering alongside him when he's been in the teaching role, and I've led worship, because he definitely has a passion for music on a deeper level than a lot of other people in his role do, and he'll have conversations with you about music stuff beforehand. So, yeah,
It was great. It was awesome to just sit down with him, pick his brain, hear his heart. So it was good. It was real good. Loved it.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the GC Collaborative Podcast.
Yeah.
I think the next one's on schedule.
1st,
May the 1st.
Next time, we're going to talk with Chris Anderson, our films director, and Jonathan, our production director. You.
Oh, is that next month?
The guru, as I like to call you.
I don't know.
And then me. And we're just going to sit down and talk about kind of our big projects of the year, some of the valleys, the mountaintops, what went well, what didn't go well in our eyes, what we learned from it. So it's going to be fun. It's kind of a year-end review of Grace Church worship and production, and all of it. And so it's going to be pretty fun. And then we're going to take the summer off, take 3 months off, and then we're going to come in hot next year, September.
Awesome.
Coming in hot.
Well, this is, thank you guys again for listening. This is Ben Abusada, and across from me again, Luke Banak. We're
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Hi, kid. I'll let you sign us off.
Well, it's Luke Lauber, but that's okay.
Yeah,
it's
it
gonna
is
stay
Luke
that.
Lauber.
It's going to stay that way.
Luke Lauber.
Yeah, Lauber. But as always, especially during the summer, in the kindest way possible, if you can accept or decline those planning center requests when you get them, it helps us plan. We know a lot of you guys get to go on vacations and stuff like that, which we love for you to do. But if you can just block out dates and or just decline when you get requests, that helps us a lot. So, as always, when somebody else gets it, it's not last minute. We're calling them saying, hey, can you fill in on a Sunday? So, but we love you guys. So thankful for all of you. And have a happy Easter if you're hearing this before Easter. And we'll see you on May 1st.
Goodbye.
That's pretty good. Oh, I love it.
Thanks for listening to the GC Collaborative Podcast. If you have any questions or would like more information, check us out at visitgracechurch.com.